Have you ever felt the weight of running a race you never agreed to join? Everywhere you look, people are displaying highlight reels of their lives, chasing applause, curating perfection. And in the quiet moments, you wonder if you're falling behind, if you're invisible, if you're enough. The noise doesn't just surround you, it seeps in. It makes you restless, hungry for recognition that never lasts, fragile in the face of every passing opinion. But there is another way. The Stoics knew that real strength is not built in the spotlight, but in the silence no one sees. It's in the early mornings when you choose discipline over distraction. It's in the patient training, the steady effort that asks for nothing but your own approval. A tree doesn't beg for praise when it grows. It simply deepens its roots until no storm can move it. So too with us. The question is, will you keep running in the noise, or will you choose the quiet path that no one can break? Stay with me. Let's walk into that silence together. As we step into this first chapter, picture the weight of noise pressing in on you, every voice shouting, every hand pointing, every screen demanding to be seen. It feels like if you stop for even a moment, you'll be forgotten, left behind in a race no one ever asked you to run. And yet, in that same storm of noise, there exists another path, a quieter one, a harder one, the path of silence. Now imagine yourself waking up before the sun. No one claps for you. No one knows what you're doing. You sit with a book. You put pen to paper. You train your body, refine your craft, repeat the same humble motions day after day. On the surface, it looks like nothing. To the world, it might even look foolish, a waste of time. But inside, something is happening. Roots are growing. A foundation is being laid. And unlike applause, which fades the moment it arrives, this foundation becomes unshakable. To build in silence is not to disappear from life. It's not exile, nor a rejection of love, friendship, or belonging. It is something deeper, a quiet contract with yourself, a vow to master your own impulses, to sharpen your own mind, to rely not on the eyes of others, but on the discipline that endures long after the crowd goes home. Seneca once wrote, "The greatest wealth is to live content with little. And little by little, when you build unseen, you discover that strength is not found in decoration, but in depth." Think of Marcus Aurelius, emperor of the greatest empire of his time, surrounded by power, consumed by responsibilities, tempted by glory, yet every morning he returned to his journal. Not for fame, not for an audience, but for honesty. He wrote of weakness, of duty, of fear, not to impress, but to remain grounded. And centuries later, we still read his words. Not because they were crafted for us, but because truth forged in solitude carries a power louder than any cheer. It takes courage to live this way. It is always easier to post your progress, to seek that rush of validation, to bask in the glow of quick recognition, but what is easy rarely lasts. When you step into silence, when you work without witness, you start to become untouchable. The criticism that once pierced you becomes weightless. The praise that once thrilled you becomes unnecessary. You act from purpose, not performance. You are no longer swayed by the unpredictable tides of other people's approval. You become anchored. Epictetus warned us, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid with regard to external things. These words cut sharp. They remind us that progress often means being misunderstood. To live by your own compass means others will question, doubt, even mock. But if you endure their silence, their suspicion, even their laughter, you emerge unbreakable. I recall a craftsman I once knew. His shop was tucked away far from the main road. He worked with his hands every day, repairing, carving, shaping. Few people visited, fewer still praised him. Yet over the years, his skill deepened. His hands moved with grace. His character grew steady and strong. One day, someone asked him why he never advertised, why he never sought the world's applause. He simply smiled and said, "Because when I leave, I want to know I built something real, not for them, for me." That answer has never left me. Here's the truth. If you live for the crowd, your confidence will crumble the moment they turn away. But if you live for your own standard, your worth is no longer negotiable. When the noise vanishes, what endures is the strength you've built when no one was watching. And that is power. That is freedom. Building in silence does not mean isolation. It does not mean abandoning life or cutting yourself off from others. You still love, you still work, you still contribute. But you no longer let the noise dictate your pace. You no longer shape yourself by how visible you are. Instead, your actions flow from a quiet conviction. Your life is your own to shape, and the only approval you need is your own. When you live this way, something shifts. You begin to find peace in the process, not anxiety in the outcome. You see fortunes rise and fall. You see reputations crumble overnight. You watch as the winds change and the crowds move on. And yet you stand firm because your roots go deep. Because what you've built cannot be touched. This is what it means to build in silence. It is not weakness. It is not fear. It is the strongest choice you can make. The strength you cultivate unseen is the strength no storm can break. And as we move forward, let's ask, if silence can make us steady, then where should we direct that strength? Where should our focus truly go? Moving into the second chapter, imagine standing in a crowded marketplace where every voice shouts louder than the last. Achievements displayed like trophies, possessions paraded as proof of worth. And there you are, caught in the tide, glancing left and right, wondering if you measure up. That constant comparison is a slow poison. It corrodes peace. It whispers that you are never enough. From childhood, we are trained to compete, to race, to tally our value against shifting standards, grades, salaries, likes, applause. But the more we let our eyes wander outward, the more we lose touch with the only ground that can hold us steady, our own choices, our own growth, our own character. Instead of cultivating our own garden, we drift through other people's fields, lost among landmarks that shift with every new trend. And in the silence of the night, the questions return. Am I enough? Am I keeping pace? These questions gnaw at the soul until all direction is lost. Here's where Stoicism cuts sharp. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. And the greatest waste is spending our life staring at someone else's path. Because the only control we truly possess lies here, in our actions, our thoughts, our responses. Everything else is smoke. Fleeting, unpredictable. When you turn your focus inward, you reclaim power. The energy once drained by envy or comparison becomes fuel for discipline. Instead of asking, what are they building? You begin to ask, what am I becoming? Consider the story of Epictetus, born into chains, his body bound by slavery from the moment he drew breath. He could have stared at the lives of free men, bitter, restless, defeated, but he refused to measure his worth by the conditions of his cage. He turned inward. Day after day he forged discipline, wisdom, self-mastery. His body remained captive, but his mind grew freer than that of any master. And when his chains finally fell away, he emerged not broken but unshakable, leaving behind teachings that still echo 2,000 years later. His life shouts the truth. Freedom does not come from applause or privilege, but from what you build inside yourself. There is another line from Epictetus that pierces like a blade. How long are you going to wait before you demand the best for yourself? Not demand applause, not demand recognition. Demand the best of yourself, of your habits, your patience, your integrity, because those are yours to command. No shifting trend, no opinion, no storm can take them from you. Now imagine asking yourself each evening, not did they approve of me, but did I honor my own standard today? The answers may sting. They may humble you, but they will also free you. Each honest answer becomes a brick in the foundation of a life that stands steady when applause fades and criticism swells, and they will fade. Today's cheers vanish like footprints in sand. But the character you built in silence will remain. I once knew a man who lived chasing the pace of others. He mirrored their purchases, their jobs, their milestones, always running, always exhausted. But when those same people vanished from his life, he collapsed, unsure of who he was without their eyes on him. Contrast this with another, a woman who measured her life not by comparison, but by growth. Each year she chose one virtue to strengthen. Patience 1 year, courage the next. No fanfare, no audience. Yet in crisis she stood calm while others broke. In loss she endured with dignity. That is the difference between a life built outward and a life built within. By focusing on yourself, you do not turn your back on the world. You engage it more deeply. But now you give from strength, not need. You offer your best, not because others demand it, but because you have called it forth from within. That is the path to freedom. That is the path to confidence no storm can touch. And so the choice stands before you. Continue wandering through shifting fields of comparison, or begin the patient work of tending your own soil. In the silence, you already know which path leads to peace. And as we advance, we must ask, if this inner focus steadies us, what greater power might we find in mastering not just where we look, but how we respond to the storms of life? Advancing to the third chapter, picture the sudden storm that breaks a clear sky. One moment you are steady, the next you are struck by loss, disappointment, or betrayal. Life has never promised certainty. No plan, no matter how careful, will shield us from the unexpected. But what defines us is not the storm itself. It is the way we stand when the winds rise. Now imagine the first impulse when hardship comes: anger, frustration, the urge to lash out, to collapse, to let emotions dictate the moment. We all feel it, but those who master themselves learn to resist that tide. They discover a reservoir of peace that chaos cannot touch. Instead of being ruled by events, they govern their inner state. When the world shakes, they remain grounded. Helen Keller's life is the perfect testimony. Struck blind and deaf before her second birthday, she was cast into silence and darkness. Most would have surrendered to despair, but not her. With the guidance of Anne Sullivan, she fought through isolation, one word, one letter at a time. Each small breakthrough was a battle, each day a test of patience. But she refused to be defined by what she lacked. She disciplined herself to persist, to endure slow progress, to shape her mind against the weight of impossibility. And in doing so, she transformed adversity into strength. Keller herself once said, "Although the world is full of suffering, it is also full of the overcoming of it." Her life is proof that self-control is not just survival, it is the path to purpose. Here's where Stoic wisdom meets lived reality. Epictetus, born into slavery, declared, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." That line holds the core of freedom. Even in chains, the mind can remain sovereign. Even in pain, dignity can be preserved. External events may wound the body, but the power to choose one's response belongs only to us. This is not theory. It is liberation. Think of a tree in violent wind, weak steel forged in fire snap, but the one deeply anchored bends, sways, and survives. Self-control is that root. It is what keeps us from being torn apart by every insult, every injustice, every sudden blow. It is not about suppressing feeling, but mastering it. Anger may rise, acknowledge it. Fear may whisper, see it. Sadness may visit, accept it. But none of them should command your hands, your words, or your choices. I remember once watching a man in a heated argument. Insults were hurled at him like stones. Everyone expected him to explode. Instead, he paused, he breathed, and he replied with calm, measured words. His silence unsettled his attacker more than rage ever could. In that moment, he owned the room. Not by dominance, but by mastery. That is strength. Calmness is not weakness, it is command. The fruits of self-control are rarely applauded. No crowd gathers to cheer the man who holds his tongue. No headlines honor the woman who quietly chooses patience over despair. But the impact is real. It transforms the way we live. Those who cultivate this discipline become resilient against fortune's swings. They carry clarity where others carry confusion. They walk with peace where others stumble in panic. And there is more. Self-control opens the door to compassion. When you are no longer chained by your own anger or fear, you can finally see others clearly. You do not lash out in pain, nor withdraw in bitterness. You act with wisdom. You respond with patience. You meet suffering not only with endurance, but with grace. That is power few dare to cultivate. This is where the Stoics call us, not to numbness, not to cold detachment, but to a life where emotions are channeled into growth, to take even suffering and turn it into strength, to rise again and again, not because life is easy, but because you refuse to let it master you. In the end, this is the truth. The ability to govern yourself is the foundation of an unbreakable life. It is quiet. It may go unnoticed, but it is freedom no external force can steal. When you claim it, you become unshakable, not because you are spared from storms, but because you have learned to rise above them. And from here, the question deepens. If daily discipline can root us, what habits must we plant each day to keep that inner strength alive? Entering this chapter, picture a stonemason striking the same block day after day. One strike does nothing. 10 strikes show no change. Yet with the 100th, the stone breaks, not because of that single blow, but because of the quiet accumulation of all that came before. That is what discipline looks like. Not fireworks, not applause, but steady repetition that shapes a life no storm can move. Now imagine your own mornings. Do you rise with purpose, or do you surrender to comfort? The Stoics remind us that success is rarely sudden. It is born of countless small choices, almost invisible to the world, but undeniable to yourself. Rising early, reading a few lines, writing a page, pausing for reflection. On the surface they appear trivial, but each kept promise is a stone laid in the foundation of your character. Break enough promises to yourself, and the foundation weakens. Keep them, and you become unshakable. Kobe Bryant understood this truth long before the world chanted his name. At 4 in the morning, while the city slept, he was already on the court. No cameras, no cheers, no instant reward. For Kobe, the work itself was the prize. Those unseen hours built the focus, precision, and unbreakable will that stunned the world when the lights finally turned on. His story is not about basketball, it is about the silent power of discipline, because anyone can try hard when people are watching. The question is, what do you do when no one sees? Here's where Stoic wisdom meets modern struggle. Epictetus once said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." These words slice through illusion. Dreams are not enough. Declarations mean little. The path to becoming who you wish to be is paved with daily action, especially when it feels dull, difficult, or unrewarded. The habits you repeat in private will one day shape the destiny the world cannot ignore. Consider the architecture of your days. Habits are the scaffolding that hold your future in place. Good ones, patiently built, make you strong against fortune's winds. Bad ones, left unchecked, hollow you from within. And here is the beauty: every repetition makes the next one easier. What once felt like battle becomes rhythm. What once felt forced becomes natural. Slowly, discipline ceases to feel like a cage and becomes the key to freedom. But there will be days when motivation vanishes, when distraction whispers sweeter than growth, when ease looks more tempting than effort. In those moments, the test begins. Will you honor the quiet commitment you made to yourself, or will you let fleeting moods dictate the course of your life? Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you strengthen trust in yourself. You become someone you can rely on, and that trust is priceless. I recall a friend who once told me, "I never break appointments with others, but I break them with myself every day." That sentence revealed the truth of his struggle. He could be loyal to everyone but himself, and that is how character erodes, not in public failure, but in private neglect. Discipline, then, is not about punishment. It is about self-respect, about keeping your word to yourself even when no one else is watching. This is the paradox. The world glorifies sudden transformation, yet the lives that endure are built in slow, quiet layers. A journal page here, a workout there, a single choice repeated until it becomes identity. And while others may never witness the labor that shapes you, its results will shine through in your calm confidence, your steady mind, your resilience when storms arrive. Remember this: building a life no one can break does not require spectacle. It requires the patient cultivation of habits that reflect your deepest values. It is not about display, it is about truth. And truth, lived consistently, cannot be shaken. So each morning, ask yourself, what stone will I lay today? What small promise will I keep? For in those quiet acts lies the architecture of an unbreakable life. And from here, the path becomes clearer. If habits shape the person, then what should we do with all the noise around us? The answer lies in choosing action over empty words, silence over endless declarations. At this stage, picture a crowded room where everyone is speaking at once, goals declared loudly, visions painted in bright colors, promises made with confidence. For a moment, it feels like progress, but then the noise fades, and what remains? Empty words, fleeting applause, and the quiet question, what have you actually done? So often we mistake talking for doing. Declaring a dream can give us the illusion of movement, a rush of satisfaction as though speaking it made it real. But words are light as smoke. They drift, scatter, and vanish in the winds of interpretation. What endures are the silent choices, the unseen steps, the effort made when no one is watching. Those are the bricks that build a life. Here's where the modern world tempts us most. Social platforms reward appearance over substance. We are pressured to broadcast our smallest efforts, to collect likes as though they were milestones, to project success before it has been earned. And in chasing validation, we scatter our energy, we grow restless, we trade substance for show. But the Stoics remind us that true strength is not in the story we tell about our lives, it is in the life itself. Seneca understood this better than most. A man of wealth, influence, and power, he could have filled arenas with speeches, paraded his knowledge for endless applause. Instead, he chose a quieter path. He spent his days writing, reflecting, advising others, often out of the public eye. He did not seek to impress with spectacle. He let his actions, his counsel, his steady discipline speak louder than any display. And centuries later, it is not his status that endures, but his wisdom carved in silence. In one of his sharpest reflections, Seneca wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." These words cut beyond money. They strike at the hunger for recognition, the restless craving to be seen, the endless thirst for approval. That hunger leaves us impoverished, not in possessions, but in peace of mind. But when you are content to build quietly, to find fulfillment in the work itself, you free yourself. The applause no longer rules you. The silence becomes your strength. Now imagine two builders. One stands on a stage, announcing every stone he plans to lay. The crowd cheers, then disperses. Months later, little has been built. The other builder speaks nothing. He works in steady rhythm, brick by brick, unseen. Years pass. A fortress rises. Which one do you trust when storms arrive? The answer is clear. Trust the one whose actions speak. This principle has not changed through time. The people we remember as resilient were rarely the loudest. They were the ones who labored consistently, who allowed their deeds to shape their reputation. Their impact endured because it was rooted in action, not noise. And so it is with us. Every time we resist the urge to announce and instead commit to the quiet, unglamorous work, we grow less fragile. We become less swayed by opinion, more anchored in purpose. Silence, in this sense, is not emptiness. It is sanctuary. It is the rich soil where action takes root and flourishes, safe from the scrutiny of those who judge too quickly. In silence, you gain freedom to try, to fail, to rise again without fear of ridicule. You protect your intention from being strangled by premature exposure. You give your goals the privacy they need to grow strong. And when the work is done, when the results finally emerge, they will speak for themselves. Words can be twisted. Applause is fickle. But the reality of what you have built remains yours. It cannot be argued away. It cannot be broken by opinion. So let your deeds be your true voice. Let the quality of your work answer doubt and distraction. Speak less. Do more. For in the end, it is only in this focused, quiet pursuit that a life is forged, which no one can break. And from here, the question deepens. Once we learn to silence the noise and act with purpose, how do we face the inevitable storms of life with calmness that holds steady against all adversity? From here, picture yourself walking a road that suddenly splits. On one side lies disappointment, on the other, loss. Around the bend waits the unexpected storm you never saw coming. Life does not ask for permission before it delivers hardship. It arrives like lightning across a clear sky. And in that moment, the true test begins, not in whether the storm comes, but in how you stand when it does. The instinct is to fight against it, to panic, to complain, to let frustration erupt and scatter what little strength remains. But calmness is armor. Calmness is clarity. It is not the absence of feeling, but the discipline to master those feelings, to choose not to be ruled by fear or discouragement. In silence, solutions emerge. In composure, problems shrink to their real size, often smaller than they first appeared. The story of Steve Jobs shows us this truth. Imagine pouring your life into building something from nothing, only to be cast aside, stripped of the company you birthed. Many would let resentment consume them. Many would collapse under bitterness. Jobs did not. Quietly, he redirected his energy. He created. He refined. He experimented away from the stage. And years later, he returned, not broken, but sharper, transforming Apple into one of history's greatest success stories. His own words revealed the secret. The heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again, less sure about everything. That freedom, that creativity, that resilience, it was born from calm in the turbulent sea. Marcus Aurelius knew this long before. He wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." What he is telling us is piercingly simple. Suffering often comes not from the event itself, but from the meaning we attach to it. Change the meaning, and the burden shifts. Choose calm, and you reclaim control. Calmness is not passivity. It does not mean detachment or indifference. It means active engagement with what matters and deliberate distance from what does not. It means asking in every challenge, what can I control here, and what lies beyond my reach? In answering honestly, you conserve strength. You stop bleeding energy into anxiety and redirect it toward purposeful action. History honors those who rise through adversity, not because life spared them, but because they refused to be shattered. They forged a mind resilient, undisturbed, clear. And this clarity is not inherited, it is built. Day by day, in small decisions, in the quiet choice to pause instead of panic, to think instead of lash out, to stand instead of crumble. Calmness is not a gift. It is a practice. I once saw a man at the height of crisis, his business failing, his reputation questioned. Others expected him to rage or collapse. Instead, he spoke with measured words. He did not deny the storm, but he did not let it define him. That calm disarmed his critics and steadied his allies. The earthquake did not vanish, but his composure made a path through it. That is the essence of power, not the absence of fire, but the mastery of it. In the end, calmness is courage. It is refusing to let the world dictate your internal weather. It is choosing clarity over chaos, action over despair. And in that steady stance, setbacks turn into stepping stones. Obstacles become teachers. Pain becomes fuel. So as we ask what it takes to build an unbreakable life, the answer becomes clearer. Facing challenges with calmness is not optional. It is essential. It shapes the core of who we are, ensuring that storms refine us instead of ruin us. But calmness alone is not the final measure. The deeper question remains, what defines success? Is it the applause of others, the trophies on display, or is it something quieter, something deeper, something invisible yet unshakable? At this stage, Picture a crowded city where ambition runs wild and applause feels like oxygen. In that storm once stood Ryan Holiday, a young executive at the center of America's marketing world, his days blurred with meetings, pitches, and recognition. On the outside, he looked unstoppable. Inside, he felt restless, empty. The praise was never enough. The expectations never stopped. Now imagine the courage it takes to walk away. Ryan did what many fear. He left the noise and turned inward. He immersed himself in study, reflection, and the lonely discipline of writing, not for approval, but for clarity. And in that silence, he found a deeper fulfillment. His story is not rare, it is a mirror. Because how often do we chase validation only to feel more insecure once it arrives? Here's the truth. External validation is a mirage. The higher you climb toward it, the further it drifts. The applause fades. The emptiness returns. Depend on it, and you give your peace to forces outside your control. Fickle, fleeting, unreliable. True success is different. It is not a trophy or a headline. It is the quiet strength you build within. It is knowing yourself, embracing your values, and living them even when no one is watching. That requires courage. The courage to resist the pull of the crowd, to refrain from shouting your achievements, to trust that your worth is not up for a vote. This is the path of integrity, where the rewards are invisible but profoundly real. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." He exposed the paradox at the heart of our misery. We abandon our judgment to chase the approval of those who can never truly know us. But what is the profit in winning the world's applause if it costs you yourself? To build a life that cannot be broken, you must return to the foundation, the self. Not in isolation, but in cultivating an inner compass that holds steady no matter the weather. Storms will come, they always do. But those who build strength within meet them with calm and dignity. Their peace is rooted not in fortune's tides, but in self-mastery. Ryan's journey makes this clear. Once he stopped measuring by external milestones and began asking what truly mattered, he uncovered a wellspring of strength that no critic could touch. His success now flows not from applause but from integrity. Each day he chooses the work that matters, whether anyone notices or not. The foundation he has built cannot be taken away. This is the quiet power of true success. It may not earn the loudest cheers, but it gives something greater: wholeness, contentment, peace that endures long after the noise has passed. When you shape your own values and live by them, you become unshakable. Circumstance may batter your world, but it cannot touch what you have built inside. In the end, success is not what others call you. It is the peace you carry when you know you have lived true to yourself. That is the life no storm can break. Silence is not weakness. It is the quiet strength of self-mastery. By focusing on yourself and building with patience, you create a foundation no storm can shake. Each small act of discipline becomes a step toward freedom and resilience. If this message speaks to you, subscribe and walk this path with us. Share your thoughts below with the phrase "inner strength." Keep moving forward with calm confidence and join me in the next reflection where your growth continues.